This is Bloomberg. I'm Mark Crumpton with Bloomberg's First Word News. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the military alliance is determining its future in Afghanistan as the United States starts pulling troops out while attacks by the Taliban and extremist groups increase. Stoltenberg was asked by reporters how the alliance will work with the new administration in Washington.
And I know Joe Biden as a very committed supporter of the cooperation, the bond between North America and Europe and of NATO. I'm looking forward to working with him and also with Kamala Harris, the Vice President-elect, and they have all both expressed strong support to NATO.
More than 17 years after taking the lead on international security efforts in Afghanistan, NATO now has around 11,000 troops from dozens of nations there, helping to train and advise the national security forces. A group of OPEC Plus ministers couldn't reach an agreement on whether to delay January's oil output increase. Delegates say drawn-out discussions earlier today among OPEC ministers about conditions attached to such a move means a final decision will not come before tomorrow. The third largest oil company in China reportedly will be named to a U.S. blacklist. According to Reuters, CNOOC is among 4 companies to be added to a list of firms controlled or owned by the Chinese military that could lead to major outflows of U.S. investors divest. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg.
Counting you down to the close. Just 1 hour left in trading to go. I'm Caroline Hyde.
All right, stocks off of those record highs, but still setting up for the best month since April. I'm Romaine Bostick.
And I'm Taylor Riggs, and we get right to it, ending the month on a pretty negative note after what has otherwise been a pretty good month, and we can see that in the IMAP function. Every sector mostly is in the red. Energy at one point was having the best month ever, but we've erased some of that, so now only having the best month going back since April. That doesn't sound as exciting, Romaine. Everything else, though, not really looking good.
Yeah, not really looking good, at least on a daily basis. Take a look at some of the other movers here on the day today. Of course, we talked a little bit earlier about Novavax. This is basically the stock of the year, up 3,000% here. Best performer in the NASDAQ composite. Remember, those shares dropped today, down about 6% on word of that U.S. and Mexico vaccine trial. It's getting delayed a little bit, that phase 3 trial, but some positive data out of the UK trial caused the shares to rise, now up about 11% on the day here. Still the best performer here in the NASDAQ composite. JP Morgan, some of the other big banks moving lower, a downgrade over by Betsy Graseck over at Morgan Stanley, basically saying there's going to be a little bit of a shift away from these types of banks to some of the more consumer finance companies like Synchrony. Nikola down 26%. Of course, that GM deal falling apart, not quite what people have expected, and probably one of the most talked about stocks of the year. Zoom up about 600% here on the year, getting a slight bid today. We're going to get earnings after the bell today, Caroline. Remember, this is a company that had 300% revenue growth in the most recent quarter. Investors expecting them to at least match that. Whether they live up to those expectations, we'll have to see.
It is the work from home pin-up stock, but you go granular. I want to go big picture once again, because what a month. And I love this quote coming from JJ Kinahan, TD Ameritrade. Really just said, look, put it in perspective. If anybody has said to you in March, hey, we're going to have a year where really most businesses are working at not full capacity, most restaurants may not even be open, people aren't even going into the office, and oh yeah, by the way, we'll hit all-time highs, people would have thought you completely nuts. It has been amazing. November has been amazing. 20% increase on the Russell 2000, record for global stocks. It's really been quite phenomenal, Romaine.
Yeah, it has been a phenomenal November, something we're going to be talking about for years, I'm sure. Let's bring in Omar Aguilar. He's Chief Investment Officer for Equities and Multi-Asset Strategies over at Charles Schwab, joining us today from San Francisco. Omar, always great to get your insights, particularly on a day and a time like today where the market really does seem to be pushing higher despite the downturn that we're seeing on this day. I am curious, when you consider how far this market has run, given all the adversity in the economy and with COVID, are you convinced right now that this rally has more to go?
Well, thanks for having me, and what an interesting day, what an interesting month, and I would probably say have used the word unprecedented to describe, this year more than any other time. I would probably say it was unprecedented the number of times that I have said unprecedented, because it's right. It's just very hard to even conceive everything that we have gone through on our lifetimes, but also just the market and how the market has responded to every single one of the challenges that have been presented. I would probably say that the most interesting part of November, to answer your question, is the fact that we have seen a significant change in the leadership. And, for the first time, at least since the end of last week, value has outperformed growth by over 5%. And that's obviously a significant change in the way that we see all the way through the year. In fact, last, the year and a half, where we can start to see the shift in that rotation that everybody's anticipating as we see the results of the source of the economic crisis, which is the virus. We have always stated that the economic recovery will really start to build as soon as we have a solution to the virus. So the news on the vaccine, everything that we have heard starting from 4 weeks ago until even this morning, it yields to the fact that we see the light at the end of the tunnel that suggests that rotation that everybody's starting to anticipate going from momentum into value and into cyclicals is starting to just shape up. And if you think about, what the spread has been, say, from energy to technology throughout the year, which is around 60%, right? 60%, that basically reversed even despite the weakness this morning.
You're based over there in San Francisco, are home to a lot of the big tech companies which have significantly outperformed in terms of the work from home trade. Is there any juice left in those sorts of companies, in the Zooms of this world, which we're going to get earnings from today? Or will we see we'll have to see a fall in their share prices, that they come too far too fast?
Well, it's